A young man stands frozen on a dark stairwell in the hottest week of a Petersburg summer, his heart hammering, rehearsing something he can't even say out loud. He only ever calls it that. He hasn't done anything yet, but in his pocket is a fake pawn item he's built for one reason: to measure how many steps it takes to reach an old woman's door. And here's what makes this the most unsettling crime story ever written. He's going to go through with it, and he's going to get away with it. No one will suspect him, and that is exactly when his real punishment begins. Because the question this story is really asking isn't will he be caught? It's whether a person can grant himself the right to step over another human life and still have a self left to live in. Stay to the end, because how he finally breaks is one of the most famous turns in all of literature. His name is Rodion Raskolnikov. Rodia, a brilliant, proud ex-law student who has stopped going to class, stopped working, stopped everything. He lives in a rented room so tiny and low and yellow that he calls a coffin a cupboard, a closet. He is starving, months behind on rent, hiding from his landlady on the stairs. And in that airless little box, cut off from everyone, he's been feeding a single idea until it's ready to hatch. The person he keeps circling back to is Alyona Ivanovna, a hard old pawnbroker who lends pennies against the last belongings of the desperate and hoards the profit. Raskolnikov has already made one visit, a cold, dry run, pawning a watch that belonged to his father, counting doors, learning her rooms. He tells himself it's only a fantasy, but some part of him is already measuring. Before the idea becomes an act, the city shows him why the idea is so tempting. In a filthy tavern, he meets Marmeladov, a ruined drunk who drinks away every coin his family needs. And Marmeladov confesses the thing that will haunt the whole story. His gentle daughter Sonia has been forced to sell herself on the street to keep his starving children alive. And he keeps drinking the money she earns. Then Marmeladov says the line that lands like a stone. Do you understand what it means when a person has absolutely nowhere left to go? Because a man has to be able to go somewhere. Raskolnikov looks at this shattered family, the sacrifice of an innocent girl feeding a useless man, and something in him hardens. If the world is this cruel and this senseless, then maybe cruelty is just the rule, and only a coward refuses to use it. He carries the thought home like a lit fuse. Waiting at home is a letter from his mother, and it pours kerosene on the fire. His adored sister Dunya has agreed to marry a smug, controlling businessman named Luzin, a man who wants a beautiful, penniless wife precisely so she'll be grateful and obedient forever. His mother calls it good fortune. Raskolnikov sees it for what it is. His sister's selling herself, too, this time to rescue him. And that's the moment his private theory stops being philosophy and starts becoming a plan. Sonia's sold on the street. Dunya's sold into a marriage. His mother's whole life narrowed to keep him afloat. Everyone he loves is being ground down to feed the machine. So a furious logic takes hold. If ordinary people are just material to be used, then the only real freedom is to stop being material, to become the kind of man who acts instead of being acted upon. The question is whether he is that kind of man, and he thinks he knows how to find out. This is the idea Raskolnikov has actually written a published article about, the one at the center of everything he's about to do. He believes humanity splits into two kinds. Most people are ordinary, material, obedient, existing mainly to keep the species going. But a rare few are extraordinary, the ones who speak a new word, who move history. And the extraordinary man, he argues, has an inner right to step over the old moral rules, even to take a life if his idea demands it. His examples are the great conquerors, the Napoleons. Men who broke every commandment and were called heroes for it. So the murder he's planning isn't really about money. It's an experiment on himself. Remove one greedy, worthless old woman, use her hoard to do 100 good deeds, and answer the only question that matters to him. Am I a trembling creature, like everyone else? Or do I have a right? Am I a Louse? Or am I a Napoleon? He is about to run the experiment, and the experiment is about to run him. Two things push him over the edge. First, a nightmare. A small child watching a crowd of drunks beat a broken-down horse to death for sport, the boy sobbing, throwing his arms around the dead animal's face. He wakes in horror, almost free of the whole plan. But then chance whispers back. He overhears, by pure accident, that the pawnbroker will be completely alone at 7 the next evening. And just like that, he feels less like a man deciding than a man condemned, as if it's already been settled without him. The next day, he takes up an axe and he climbs the stairs. And he steps over, and here the theory tells its first lie. It was supposed to be one clean, justified death. But the pawnbroker's gentle, defenseless sister Lizaveta walks in at the wrong moment. And to protect his extraordinary act, he has to kill her too. The innocent one, the one nobody's arithmetic accounted for. He barely escapes as visitors come knocking at the door. He has done the impossible thing, and he feels no triumph at all. Only a door closing behind him that he can never, ever reopen. And here is what the title has been hiding. The punishment starts immediately, and no one has to catch him for it. He staggers home in a fever, hides the stolen goods without even looking at them. And this is the tell, he can't bring himself to use a single coin. He buries the loot under a stone and never digs it up. The man who killed for a theory of freedom is suddenly a prisoner in his own mind. He collapses into delirium for days. His loyal friend Resurrected nurses him. Every knock at the door feels like the law, but the law isn't the real threat. He is, because part of him is desperate to be found out. He wanders to the police station and nearly faints. He needles a young police clerk, practically daring him. What if it was I who killed her? He drifts back to the murder flat and rings the doorbell, just to feel the horror again. He isn't running from the crime. He's circling it, because he cannot live inside the silence of getting away with it. Then the city hands him a mirror. Marmeladov, the drunk from the tavern, is trampled by a carriage and carried home to die in the arms of Sonia, the daughter he ruined. Raskolnikov is there, and on pure impulse, he gives the grieving family nearly all the money his own mother scraped together for him. For one moment, giving instead of taking, he feels something like being alive again. And Marmeladov's little girl throws her arms around his neck in thanks. He walks out almost lightheaded, telling himself that life is still possible. And he comes home to find his mother and his sister Dunya waiting for him, just arrived in the city. The two people his crime has quietly poisoned him against. Because how can a murderer be embraced by the people who love him most? He faints at the sight of them. The more human warmth reaches for him, the more the secret walls him off. He needs to confess to someone, but not yet. First, he has to be hunted. Enter the most dangerous man in the story. Not a brute, but a smiling one. Porfiry Petrovich is the magistrate investigating the murders, and he has read Raskolnikov's article about extraordinary men. So instead of accusing him, Porfiry invites him into a conversation, drawing the whole theory out into the open, all warmth and jokes and little psychological pinpricks, letting Raskolnikov feel, without a single accusation, that Porfiry knows. It's a duel with no weapons. Porfiry never has enough evidence to arrest him. He doesn't even want to. He'd rather let Raskolnikov's own conscience do the work, like a moth circling a candle until it flies in. And it's working. Raskolnikov leaves each meeting more raw, more certain he's been seen straight through. Then a stranger steps out of the doorway, looks him in the face, and says one quiet word, "Murderer," and walks away. Raskolnikov nearly comes apart. He goes home shaking, and find a new visitor already sitting in his room, a man who knows exactly what it means to step over. That visitor is Svidrigailov, and he is Raskolnikov's nightmare wearing a pleasant face. He's a wealthy, idle, morally rotten man, trailed by dark rumors of the people he's used and destroyed, including the young and the helpless. He is, in other words, exactly the extraordinary man Raskolnikov dreamed of being. Someone who steps over other lives without his conscience ever making a sound. And this is what he's here to show us. Svidrigailov isn't punished by guilt because he doesn't feel any. He's punished by emptiness. In one chilling moment, he says maybe eternity isn't some vast heaven or hell at all. Maybe it's just one little soot-blackened room, like a country bathhouse, with spiders in every corner, forever. That's where stepping over actually leads. Not to Napoleon's glory, to a dirty little room with spiders and nothing else. Raskolnikov is staring at his own theory, taken all the way to the end. And it's staring back, bored and hollow, and already half dead. Against that emptiness stands one person, Sonia, the girl the world has thrown away, the one selling herself to keep children alive, has somehow kept the one thing Raskolnikov has lost, a soul that still believes in something. He is drawn to her helplessly, and one night, in her poor little room, he asks her to read to him from the Gospel, the raising of Lazarus. The dead man called back out of the tomb. By the guttering candle, they make a strange pair. The murderer and the outcast, bent together over the eternal book. And this is the quiet answer to all his cold logic. Not a better argument. A person, everything reason built, the theory, the right to step over the Louse and the Napoleon is about to lose. Not to a smarter idea, but to a starving girl who refuses to stop loving the people who hurt her. The trap tightens. Porphyry keeps circling. For a moment, a house painter even confesses to the murders falsely out of a strange longing to suffer, and Raskolnikov gets a reprieve. But the walls keep closing, and finally he does the thing he's been unable to do with anyone else. He goes to Sonia, and he tells her the truth. He killed them, and in trying to explain why, his whole theory finally shatters in his own hands. He reaches for his grand reasons. Napoleon, the greater good, ridding the world of a useless louse. And none of them hold. And underneath them all, he finds the real one. He wanted to know if he had the right. And by the very fact that he had to ask, he already knew the answer was no. Then comes the line that is the key to everything. It wasn't the old woman I killed, he realizes. I killed myself. The crime was never really committed against her. It was committed against his own soul. And Sonia, weeping, tells him what he has to do. Go to the crossroads, bow down, kiss the earth you've defiled, and say aloud to everyone, I have killed. Then life can begin again. Porphyry comes one last time, and he's done playing. Quietly, almost kindly, he tells Raskolnikov plainly, you did it. You killed them. He can't quite prove it, but he doesn't need to anymore. Instead, he gives him advice that sounds less like a policeman and more like a doctor of the soul. Stop reasoning. Embrace the suffering. Confess and take your punishment because you need it the way a drowning man needs air. Air, air. That's what he keeps saying. You've sealed yourself in a coffin room of the mind, and the only way out is to breathe. Meanwhile, Raskolnikov's dark double reaches the end of his own road. Svidrigailov, offered one last chance to become human, to actually love someone, finds he can't, and that the emptiness is unbearable after all. The man who stepped over everyone, who felt no guilt, simply cannot go on living in the spider's room. And he ends his own life. It's the counterexample laid right beside Raskolnikov's choice. This is where the theory finishes if you follow it all the way. Not in freedom. In a void a person would do anything to escape. So Raskolnikov chooses the other road. the humiliating one, the human one. He says goodbye to his mother and his sister. Sonia presses a small cross into his hand, and he walks out into the Haymarket, the crowded public square, and he kneels down in the dirt in front of everyone and kisses the earth. People laugh. They think he's drunk. It doesn't matter. For the first time in the whole story, he has stopped being above other people and rejoined them, down in the mud, one of the crowd. Then he walks into the police station and says the words out loud. It was I who killed them. And notice who he confesses to. Not the clever Porphyry who hunted him, but an ordinary, hot-tempered officer, almost at random. Because the confession was never about the law catching up with him. It was about him catching up with himself. The actual sentence is almost an afterthought, a reduced term of hard labor in Siberia. And Sonia, who owes him nothing, sells everything she has and follows him there, to a frozen prison town, just to be near him. For a long time, even that isn't enough. In prison, Raskolnikov stays proud, cold, sick, still half believing his only real crime was failing, being weak, getting caught. The theory dies hard. And then one morning, sitting by a wide river at the edge of the world, something finally breaks open in him. And instead of an argument, it's love. He weeps and throws himself at Sonia's feet, and in that wordless moment he is, at last, resurrected by love. The heart of each holding infinite life for the other. But there is no neat bow here. This isn't the story of a man cured. It's the story of a man beginning. The long renewal ahead of him. The passage from one world into another would be a whole new story. Here, ours ends. That is the real punishment and the real mercy. Not the years in Siberia, but the long, unfinished work of becoming a person again. Because in the end, he learned the thing his theory could never see. You cannot step over another soul without falling straight through your own. And the only thing strong enough to pull you back out is a love you did nothing to deserve. So tell me down in the comments, was Raskolnikov ever really extraordinary? Or was it the most ordinary lie of all? And if you want more deep dives into the books that still see straight through us 150 years later, you know what to do.